Hi, so I'm going to talk about, my name is Nicholas Olmeyer, and I'm going to talk about money and inflation and the Austrian viewpoints of inflation and what solutions or what solution could possibly help business cycle trends and the inflation problem that we constantly see every so often. Here we go. So first off, need to talk about money, what money exactly is. Everybody is pretty familiar that money just serves as a medium of exchange. There are two different types of money. There's commodity money and fiat money. Commodity money, a great example of commodity money would be gold or silver. Commodity money has value within itself. Gold can be melted down into jewelry like necklaces or rings, and same goes for silver. It has value within itself. It's not just used as a medium of exchange, but it has value within itself. Fiat money does not have value within itself. Fiat money is most commonly used today. It mainly just serves as a medium of exchange. For example, just our paper money or banknotes or, treasury bonds, things like that. They don't have a value within itself. You can't really do anything with a piece of paper. You may be able to change it into a paper airplane and throw it across the yard, but what value does that actually give that piece of paper? It may say, yes, we've got X amount of dollars here waiting for you at your bank, but it doesn't. That piece of paper cannot do anything for you that things like gold or silver can. So that's the main difference. Money neutrality. Money neutrality is another thing that Austrian economics talk about. They say that money it's not neutral. It can't be neutral, strictly because prices are constantly changing. There's never a dictated price level for anything. There's no price level for goods, and there's no price level for money. The price of money, which is its purchasing power, constantly changes due to the business cycle in terms of inflation and deflation. Purchasing power may go up, it may go down. It's constantly fluctuating. So in terms of inflation, purchasing power is actually going to decrease. Now, the origins of inflation, there are many origins of inflation, but a few, or just the main ones, inflation mainly comes from government intervention and banks. So governments, they can print money to pay off debts or to expand public enterprise, which would increase a nation's investment spending and consumer spending. And then central banks, they can lower interest rates, which encourages entrepreneurs to act in investment and sometimes malinvestment. This initially, people will find themselves better off because more money is being thrown into the economy. People may see a rise in pay due to investment, or they'll overall will just see a rise in consumer spending. But initially, people will find themselves better off. But as more money is spent and produced, prices will rise, and they'll continue to rise until banks and monetary authorities like the government can't continue an expansion of credit suitable for the rising demand of money. So as the money supply is increased, purchasing power will decrease. You can see that I explained that in my last little sentence there. Expansion of money, it decreases purchasing power. So the effects of inflation. What does inflation have? What happens to the economy as a whole? Well, basically, from just a naive monetarist viewpoint, things will return back to order once this line of credit or inflation can no longer continue. That's what very broad or narrow-minded monetarist view would say. But Austrians, they have a differing view. They say during times of inflation, there's a lot that happens. A lot of negative effects happen, such as price avalanches and then shifts in allocation of resources. So price avalanches, for example, there will be shifts in spending. Initially, like I said, when people are making more money and investing more money, they're going to put their money where in places where they probably couldn't have before. They may not be spending more money, but they may be purchasing other items that they previously couldn't, like luxury goods, for example. There might be a spike in luxury goods, so those producers who produce luxury goods will see a boom in their business, whereas, let's say, grocery stores, people aren't going to be exactly purchasing more groceries than they had previously. So obviously, more money is going to be spent in places where they haven't been before, which leads to just a shift of what is consumed and what is produced. Some goods will be produced more, some will be produced less, and other goods will be consumed more and other goods will be consumed less. Another thing would be a shift in allocation of resources. So an example would be before this time, the initial period of inflation, let's say a lender lended out X amount of dollars to somebody and said, within the next 5 years, you need to pay me back this plus the interest that you owe me. During times of inflation, that number value won't change, but the value of that dollar or that currency will change. So if inflation continues, the borrower who borrowed that money, as he pays this money back to the lender, he's actually in favor during times of inflation because the money value is worth less now. Therefore, the lender is actually suffering from allowing somebody to borrow his money. So that's there are shifts of allocation of resources in that sense. So a possible solution to inflation was actually developed by Friedrich Hayek, an Austrian economist. He proposed nations engage in currency competition. So many governments, like he said, create a monopoly in their own fiat money. You can't. They always, when you're traveling from country to country, you're always going to have to change your currency to the domestic one, whether it be traveling from Europe to the United States. You need to exchange your euros for dollars or vice versa. You can't just freely spend the currency that you want to. But if people were able to use the currency of their choice, then they would tend to use the currency that they thought best maintained its value. So one currency that its purchasing power wouldn't go down. You know, its value is always being maintained. You'd be able to know that for this amount of money, X amount of dollars or euros, you're going to be able to purchase a certain good or service for that amount in the future. It's not going to fluctuate. I mean, it's always going to fluctuate here and there, but it won't change drastically. You know, you're going to be able to know what you're able to purchase with the money that you have. By engaging in this competition, by by allowing people to choose the currency that they want, it pressures governments to not act in inflationary policies like printing money or lowering interest rates to encourage entrepreneurs to act in malinvestments. By doing this, people will see currency actually begin to shift towards a more balanced way of spending. Its values will be maintained, and inflation and price changes or price increases will actually begin to cease.